Awesome. All right, I'm Paige. I'm an addict, and it's super exciting to be here because if you know anything about me, extravagant is not really in my wheelhouse. But I love talking about promises. And some of you guys that know me love or know that I love the sneaky prayers, the sneaky promises, the sneaky. I love it. So what we're going to do is we're going to bounce around the book. How could we not if we're talking about promises today? And we're going to talk about maybe some of the promises that hopefully you hadn't heard of, hopefully you haven't seen in the book, hopefully the people that were speaking before me didn't talk about, because that's really the goal. So I'll start with the never heard of 9th step promises. I'm just kidding. All right, so if you have your book to hand, grab it. We're gonna bounce. So the first place that we're gonna do, by the way, if you don't have your book, you don't have your book to hand, don't worry about it. I'm going to read the words, so you're not going to miss anything. If you're like, listen, I'm on the couch, I'm not moving. Reasonable. That's fair. I'll bounce us. Alrighty. The first place we're going to kick off as we explore the many extravagant promises through the book Alcoholics Anonymous is on the title page. And this is the first promise in the book. And it says, the title of the book being Alcoholics Anonymous. And it says the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And that's that first promise, that we can recover, that recovery is possible. Now, if you come from a part of the world where, and I come from a part of the world where some people will hear, I'm a recovered alcoholic or I'm a recovered addict, and they will bristle with antagonism. Do we have anyone bristling? Is there some bristling happening? I'm actually not seeing any bristling, but maybe you're hiding your bristling. All right. But what I want to point out, because where I live in the world, there are people that bristle with antagonism of the idea of being recovered. What do you mean recovered? I'm never cured. And that is true. So what does it mean to be recovered? And we see recovered throughout this whole book. That's not where I'm going to bounce us around. I don't even think I could do that in 40 minutes. It's all over the book. But what does it mean to be recovered? Hey, good to see you, Bill. What does that mean? So I am not cured of the illness that is alcoholism. I am not cured of the illness that is alcoholism, but I would describe myself as a recovered addict, as a recovered alcoholic. And what does that mean? Well, there will never be a time in my life when I could ever safely drink or use any mind-altering substance ever, because I've got the allergy. And if I got the allergy, I got the allergy. Once I start, I cannot stop. Does that sound familiar? Once I start, I keep going. Sounds like you guys, right? So I can't ever take any mind-altering substance, and yet I am recovered. So to be recovered doesn't mean that I can safely use again. That's not what that means. But to be recovered describes that state of being that is described in the 10th step promises, where the obsession is removed. The obsession of the mind, for those that are unsure or don't know what I'm describing, the obsession of the mind is the thought that I have when I am as sober as I am today, but my illness is untreated. And is a thought that tells me this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll just go out for a few drinks. Crack was my problem. I can drink like a lady. Alcohol was my problem. I can smoke crack like a lady. If y'all are wondering, nothing in my life ever happened in a ladylike fashion. So I was not, well, no, I like to joke. I was smoking crack, pinkies up, like a lady. So that thought that takes me back again and again and again to the first hit, hoot, high, drink, pill, snort, whatever it is that takes me back to the inevitable first one. That is the obsession of the mind. And what we're talking about when it means that we have recovered is that thought is gone. That thought is relieved. That thought is taken as the result of the course of action of the 12 steps. So just as I can never ever safely drink or use any mind-altering substance ever again, it is as true that even though I am recovered, I can never ever safely not fully be engaged in the 12-step process of recovery on a daily basis. Because if I stop doing that, the obsession of the mind will come back. And if the obsession of the mind hits, I will drink again. I will use again. I don't have the power to stop that. And so even though I am recovered, I am not cured. So hopefully anyone who is bristling with antagonism, nobody copped to it, but if you had some inside bristles, that's all dealt with. So that's all dealt with. Let's bounce. We got some more promises, and some of them are going to be extravagant. Will I talk about the 9-step ones? I don't know. We'll see if I get there. Let's pop over to page 13. So page 13, we're going in Bill's story. Y'all know that there was a promise in Bill's story? Wild. Page 13, where we're going is the very bottom paragraph, my friend promised. My friend promised. Now that friend is our guy, Ebby Thatcher. And so my friend promised when these things were done. What were these things? Well, if we go up the page on page 13, what we see is the course of action that later became our 12 steps. So Ebby Thatcher made a promise to Bill Wilson that if you carry out this course of action, that this will happen for you. And you see, here's the thing. This promise is being made from Ebby Thatcher to Bill Wilson on page 13. Now, that same promise is being made to us, not just on page 13, but on page 60. On page 60, it says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. As the result. So if I take this course of action, I will get the result of a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience, an entire psychic change. That is promised. It's promised to Bill and it's promised to us. But here's the thing. Here's what is a little rude about all these promises. Y'all know that they come with fine print, which is not cool because nobody asked me about that. But they come with fine print. And that fine print is, I gotta do things to get the results, which again, is not cool. I would like it up front. You know what I mean? I want the promise up front and then I'll put the work on layaway. You know what I mean? I'll deal with the work later. I want that. Give me the good stuff, right? Yeah, you guys know what's up. But unfortunately, it is my friend promise when these things were done. To get the results of the 12 steps, I have to take the action of all 12 steps. And that is important, and that is the order. So it says, my friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator. And that's a spiritual awakening. To build a relationship with power. Not just accessing power, but a relationship with power, a relationship with the spirit of the universe. And then it says that I would have the elements of a way of living, which I will point out is rude. It's a way of life. I just thought I had to do this thing for 30 days and then I'd be all done. No, this is a way of life that I am never done. And again, as I was talking about our very first promise to be recovered, I don't have the luxury of complacency. Complacency is for those that do not have this illness. Because if I become complacent, the things inside of me that will build up, the resentments, I know you guys don't have any of those, the fears, not you guys don't have fears, the guilt and the shame and all that stuff will build, and I will be blocked from that power, and I will pick up, I will relapse, and that, well, we'll talk about how that's another promise here in a moment, but so these are the elements of a way of living. So Rudy Tooty, this thing is a way of life. I've got to do this as how I live my life, which answered all my problems. All my problems. There is not a problem that I cannot take to the 12 steps. There is not a problem that I cannot take to God. All my problems, not just the looming problem of the inevitability of the relapse, but all my problems. Man, this is a way of life that works. And I will tell you, man, I have had problems. They weren't as extravagant as the promises with which we are describing, but man, I have had problems. And my experience is that every time I have taken that problem through the course of action that is laid before us in the 12 steps, I have changed. And I've been able to navigate that problem in a way that I did not think possible. That has been my experience. And again, these promises, they come with fine print, which is, again, rude, uncalled for. So what do I have to do to receive the promise? The promise of a new relationship with my Creator, the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. There's some stuff that I got to do. What do I got to do? Well, I have to have belief in the power of God. You know what's good news about that? I don't have to believe in God. I just need to believe in the power. And you see, what happens is I come to rooms like this with people like you and people who have recovered, where the light is on in their eyes and there is a glow about their spirit, and they are happy and they are smiling and they are free. And to be fair, when I first get here, I can't stand them. I think they're a little annoying because I am not Babe though. Babe is the best, but I am filled with a self-hatred that is unparalleled. And I'm in so much darkness that the people who are shining bright, it's almost like, when you're in the dark and somebody switches on the light, it's like it's almost too much, and I'm irritated with it. But the truth is, I might not like the word God. I might have old ideas about the conception of God. I might have had theology or religion shoved down my throat. But I cannot deny that there is a power that you have that I do not have. So I don't need to believe in God, but I need to at least acknowledge that there is a power. And I can't come to the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous and deny the power that I see. So I've got to have belief in the power of God. And it says, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. So what is asked of me to get and to have a spiritual awakening? Well, I've got to have belief in the power. I've got to have willingness. Now, I'll tell you what willingness looks like. Because I think a lot of times we have that lens that willingness looks like, oh boy, what a great idea. I can't wait to write inventory. Delightful. An amends to my ex. Whee! What a wonder. Delightful. Working with others? Yes, I would love to give my spare time to other alcoholics and drug addicts. They're known for being so kind, patient, reasonable, and punctual, and they show up every time. You know what I mean? I would love to. That is not willingness can look like that, but I don't know if I've seen it. Here's what willingness, at least in my life and the lives of those that I work with, seems to look like. Willingness looks like I don't want to. Willingness looks like I'm absolutely terrified. Willingness looks like I don't think it could possibly help me, but I'm going to do it anyway. That is what willingness looks like. Taking the action, regardless of what I think, what I feel, what I believe. I take the action anyway. When we talk about the honesty will grow into cash register honesty. I'm just telling you that for any of you that are reasonably newly sober, and you've put down the pipe, you put down the bottle, you put down the baggie, and your fingers are getting sticky at the shoppers. You know what I mean? For some reason, we pick up shoplifting. So we will grow into that cash register honesty. But at this point in time, the honesty that is required of me is the honesty to see that I cannot do it on my own. I cannot do it in and of myself. I need help. When we talk about humility, let's talk about what humility means. It doesn't mean that I'm thinking less of myself. It doesn't mean, because I thought I was humble. I wasn't humble. I was only thinking about myself, about how much I sucked and how I hated myself and how I shouldn't be here and how I'm the worst human being that ever lived. But you'll notice I'm thinking about me, I'm thinking about me, I'm thinking about me. And so what is humility? Humility is the deep concession that I am no better than you, but I'm also no worse than you, and that I am growing in dependence upon God. That is humility. And that is what I'm going to need to establish the spiritual awakening. And then what does it say? And maintain? Oh man, you're telling me my spiritual awakening's going to need an oil change? Yep. I don't know about you. Any of you guys stay well on one drink? You have one drink and you're like, that was sufficient. Anyone here smoke one hoot of crack and think, well, that was a delightful exercise. I'm all done. Anyone do a line and be like, all done, thank you. I would like to go to sleep now. No, I couldn't stay well on one drink. I couldn't stay well on one hoot. I sure as heck couldn't pop one pill. I cannot stay well on one spiritual experience. I need to grow that experience. I need to seek out deeper, further experience. And that is what is essential, that I am willing to do those things to bring about the spiritual awakening and to deepen the spiritual awakening. So where we're going to do is we're going to pop over to page 43. 43. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the very, very bottom paragraph of page 43. One of the ways we can look at this is that it's a bit of a warning. But, there are people who say, like, every step has a promise. And so what would the step one promise be? I got some news. It's not great. Step one is not a great place to be. So, bottom paragraph of page 43. Once more, the alcoholic or the addict at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. Y'all ever hear there are no musts in the book? All I'm saying is y'all should open a window. It was getting a little musty in there, Woo! And here's the thing. It's not a promise in the extravagance of what we're looking at. It's not the 9th step. It's not the 10th step. But in step 1, there is something that is promised to each and every one of us. Is that if I have the illness that is outlined in this book, there are 2 things. One is that there will never be a time when I can ever safely drink or use any mind-altering substance ever again, because I have the allergy of the body, and that is promised. Now, the real promise in step 1 is that I will use again. I will drink again. I will relapse. And that is because of the obsession of the mind. I have no defense against the first drink, the first drug, the first hit, the first hoot. There is nothing in and of myself that I can put between me and the relapse. No human power is sufficient. No mental power is sufficient. No willpower is sufficient. I have no power. If I have no power, I am defenseless. And if I am defenseless, what that means is there is nothing that will stop the relapse. I will use again. And that's the step 1 promise, or at least one way to look at it. And then when I can understand and grab a hold of that, because there's not a whole lot of hope in that. It's like, girl, you're not bringing good news. Those are not good tidings. I am again bristling with antagonism at the very thought of your voice. I know, I have to hear me too. I get it. But it is when I can see the hopelessness of my predicament that I'm willing to grab a hold of the hope. And the hope is, if the defense must come from a higher power, the hope is that there could be a power that would solve my problem. That is the hope. And so why don't we talk about some of the promises that we have in step 2? Because step 2 is simply about believing, could there be a power? And could that power take from me that thought that I have that tells me I can get high, that I can get drunk? So let's have a look at some of these step 2 promises, because I don't think we talk about these. So I want to be a bit of not a contrarian. I want to be a dink, apparently. So let's go to page 55. And where we're going to go is 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go to the 4th paragraph on page 55. And we're going to be having a look at the first, 2nd step promise. And it says we can only clear the ground a bit. Page 55, right near the bottom. If our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, so if our experience helps sweep away those old ideas, those preconceived notions about what a higher power, what a spiritual experience is, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently, and here's what's rude, within myself? Oh man, I gotta look within. How am I gonna do that? Inventory. If you're like, how do I go within? Inventory gets me within. That's what we're going to do. I know it's rude. It's rude that I'm going to show up with that sort of information and attitude. It says, search diligently within yourself. Then, if you wish, you can join us on the capital B, capital H broad highway. And if I take us to the 5th step promises, I'm not doing great on time, so I don't know where we're going to go. But if I take us to the 5th step promises, we're going to see that broad highway is mentioned there. So it says, if you wish, you can join us on the capital B, capital H broad highway. Now, this is the promise. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness that with knowing the experience of a power greater than yourself is sure to come to you. It is promised. Did you all know that the 12 steps out of the book Alcoholics Anonymous have to be alcoholic proof? And we can extrapolate to say addict proof. Because here we are. You are not so powerful that you can screw them up. If you just follow the directions that are outlined in this book, you will have an experience. It will happen for you. It is promised. Now, if you don't believe me, let's pop over to page 57. Page 57. And it's the very bottom paragraph. Just a quick little bounce. I'm not going super bouncy, but we're going to bounce. So page 57. And it says, even so has God restored us all to our right minds. And what we're talking about there is we are talking about the obsession of the mind is gone. It is relieved from us. That is what has happened. God has restored us all to our right minds. To this man, the revelation was sudden. And we're talking about my homie, Fitzmayo. You don't have to like him, but I think he's great. Fitzmayo. Some of us grow into it more slowly, and here is the promise. Here is the promise that is available to each and every one of us at this meeting today. But he has come to all who have honestly sought him. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. So what is asked of me to have this experience is to seek this power, is to draw near this power. And you might be like, well, how do I do it? Do I got to go on a retreat? Do I got to buy crystals? Well, you can if you want. I won't stop you. But that is the sole purpose of the 12 steps that are outlined in this book. The 12 steps are how I seek this power. And the 12 steps are how I draw near this power. And that is what I have to do to have this experience. Now let's pop over. I feel let's do page 63, step 3 promises. Why don't we do those ones? How's that sound? I'm not doing great for time. Oh, so page 43. Or page 63, sorry. 63. And it is at the very top of the paragraph, first paragraph, top of the page. This, what are known as the step 3 promises. And part of why I feel called to talk about them is, well, it is the next one in order. And I seem to be going in order. So we'll see how I do. Let me have a look at that time. Yeah, we're not doing great. But it is happening in order. But here's the thing. The 3rd step promises do not come into fruition at step 3. See, it says, page 63, top of the page, when we sincerely took such a position. What is the position? The position is that I am no longer running my life. And instead, I'm going to let a power, God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, source, I'm going to let that run my life. And I am going to work for God. That is the position. When I sincerely show up and I'm going to work for God. Anyone get a job? You don't get paid if you don't show up on the first day or the second day or the third day, which again is a little uncalled for because I would like the money and then just keep going till I'm done. That's what Paul said. So if we all have resentments about it, we can take it up with Paul, and any comments or complaints about Paul, how they will be received by the group the meeting Extravagant Promises is in the nature of 4-column inventory. So that's how they will be receiving your complaints. So if I don't go to work, I will not get paid. So what do I have to do? I have to go to work. And then Paul said, any complaints, take them to Bill Swan. Just if you didn't catch that. I didn't say it. Paul said it. I'm just amplifying the voice. So when it talks about when we sincerely took such a position. So the step 3 promises aren't going to happen at step 3. The step 3 promises are going to happen as I continue on this process, as I begin to write inventory, as I share that with another person, as I take the quiet hour, as I become willing and I ask for the power to take what I see relieved, as I go out from there to make amends, as I continue that process 4 through 9 and 10, and I continue that in 11, and I grow in prayer and meditation in 11, and I help others in 12. That is when this happens. It doesn't happen at step 3. So because my will in my life does not get turned over at step 3. My will in my life gets turned over as I work these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. So it says we had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed. This is the employment contract that we're signing. We have a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed. Not what I want, which again is a little rude. I'll put in a spiritual when you're at work, requisition form. I would like to request a boyfriend and a new car and a fancy whatever. And then God's like, how about spiritually awakened? And I'm like, so I don't get what I want. And to be honest with you, that's a joke. I can't think of anything worse than a relationship. No, thank you. I'm good. Just a relationship with God for me over here. Alrighty. So we had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. So how do I keep close to God? Well, how I do that is I work these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. And what is God's work for somebody like me? Well, Dr. Bob, I think, said it best. Love and service. God's work for somebody like me is love and service. Especially with his little crackheads and his little drunks, because I was made specifically to go help his crackheads and his drunks. But love and service to all beings. Love and service wherever I go. And so when I'm there, when I'm established on such a footing, I'm not established on that footing with a decision. I've got to take the action 4 through 9 to get me on this footing. But as established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. And what we're talking about is, the self, the bondage of self. I'm wrapped up in that blanket of self-pity that turns into a noose. We became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs, which, when Bill Wilson is calling us out, but he's doing it real subtly. What do you mean my little plans and designs? You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, God bless you and your little plans and designs, you sweet summer child. I'm like, I got plans and designs. And it's like, oh, no. And by the way, if you're like, why wouldn't I want to be interested in my plans and designs? Well, one of the things I'll point out is how well did that work? How well did it work? When I was at the helm of my life was a dumpster that was on fire, that was careening off a cliff. So not well. When I'm in charge of my plans and designs, it didn't work and I did not even get what I wanted. And it says more and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. And if you've not had this experience, that's where the freedom lies. When my orientation is not about me and what I can get. You see, when I'm in that place of me, I, me, my, what can I get? There is never enough. And I operate out of fear because I have a tremendous sense of scarcity, that there is not enough. And that's accurate. It's accurate because when I'm trying to get from the world, there's never enough. But you see, when I'm receiving from a loving higher power, when I'm receiving from God and I am focusing on what can I give, I awaken to a world that is abundant. There is more than enough. If my orientation, the posture of my heart is focused on what I can give. And it says, as we felt new power flow in. See, I'm trying to clear away the stuff in between me and this power, and it flows in. It's a new power. I'm here to channel that power. And that's good news, because in step 1, I was without power. I was powerless. And now a new power is flowing through me. As we enjoyed peace of mind, there was a peace and a calm. And if you've not done this work, you might know what this is like. And I have these moments where I'm off the beam and I know what this is like, where everything outside of me is still and my inside is screaming and the head is going 1,000,000 miles an hour and it is agony and I can't sit and be in my own skin. We're talking about not that. We're talking about the world is still and I am still. We're talking about the world is chaos and I am still. And I am at peace and I am at ease. And that is what is available. So as we became less and less interested in our little plans and designs, more and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life, as we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully. And I don't know about you, I cannot face life successfully on my own power. For me, the world, it felt like it was, the volume of the world was turned up to 11, and it was just too much and I couldn't do it. And so it says, as we became conscious of his presence, so a with-knowing experience, not an idea of this power, but an experience of this power, we began to lose our fear. That fear is falling from us of today, so I can be in the present moment. We lose our fear of tomorrow. We lose our fear of the hereafter. We were reborn. And I stole this from Terry, who probably stole it from Babe. Now, if I am to be reborn, what does that mean? That means something needs to die. So what has to die? My egoic self. The selfishness, the self-centeredness, that is what dies. And if you're like, who will I be without selfishness, self-centeredness? Who will I be without my defects of character? What I want you to know is who we become is who I truly always wanted to be, but didn't think I could. And the only thing that was asked of me was to do this work as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. So let's pop over and let's see a promise in step 4. So let's pop ourselves over to page 68, and we got a promise here. Now, I'm sure there's more, but this is we're skedoodling. We're skedaddling. I'm trying to hustle my bustle. Page 68, and what we are on is paragraph number 2. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so, and we're talking about fear. Now, this is what I talk about being the fear promise. Now, it's going to be at the bottom of this paragraph. So it says, we think so, for we are now on a different basis. The basis of trusting and relying upon God. Hey, when did I agree I was going to do that? Step 3, baby. That's what we were just talking about. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. Because I am a finite being, and I'll sit in the delusion of the God chair and try to fix, manage, save, control everyone and everyone's life, and it does not work. And I am an ineffective God, but there is infinite power that is available if I'm willing to get myself out of the way. It says we're in the world to play the role he assigns. I agreed to do that in step 3, right when I signed that employment contract. I am working for God. And this is the promise. It says, just to the extent that we do, oh man, it's almost like this thing is based in action, and I got to take action. I can't sit around and pontificate. I got to take action. Rude. So it says, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us. And the power in that is I don't even need to know what God's will is for me. I just need to do my best at what I think God's will is for me. And if you're here today and you're a little unsure about what is God's will, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that if you're here today in this moment, God's will is to work these 12 steps like our life depends on it. That is God's will. And then if I do that, everything else will get sorted out. Should I get the job, not get the job? Should I get the relationship, not get the relationship? Probably no on the relationship. But God will tell you. You know what I mean? All of that other stuff will sort itself out. And I will get an inkling and direction. But just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us, and humbly rely on him, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. And a modern word for calamity might be trauma. The traumatic, awful, painful things that have happened in our lives, that is matched with serenity. A peace and a serenity and a calm that is not my own, and that has been my experience, and that is available to each and every one of us. That is a powerful promise. Now, let's pop over and oh man, yeah, because I want to do this one. Let's pop over to page 73. And what we're going to talk about is what I like to call the Missy Elliott promises. Will I have time to talk about the ninth step? Probably not. Will I? So I'm making sure I got time for the Missy Elliott bad boys. Those are the ones I want to focus on. So if you, on the very top paragraph on 73, it's not even the full one, right? It says, having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is they never completed their house cleaning. So it's talking about those people who did not do a fifth step or did not share everything on their fifth step. It says they took inventory all right, but they hung on to some of the worst items in stock. Because what is the thing that I don't want to share? It's not the, like I was judging Paige at the meeting when she was sharing. It's not that. That's not the stuff. It's the deep, dark secret. It's that thing or those things deep inside my soul that make me think that I am not worthy to be here. I'm not worthy of God's love. I'm not worthy of sobriety. It is those things that make me think that I am subhuman. That. And if I hold on to that, I'm holding on to the worst items in stock. And that's what happens. It says they only thought they lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. And so I've got to share all my life story. And so if you guys remember Missy Elliott, it was in 2002. She came out with a song, I think it's called Reverse It. I really should know what the song is called because I reference it quite a bit. And in the song, she sings, you got a big burp, let me search it, because the radio would make an elephant noise over it. You got a big burp, let me search it. And I am pretty sure it was, you've got a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me search it for clear-cut directions on how I recover. What else would it be? Do you think it's something else? That's weird of you. Gross. What are you thinking? No, there's no way it's anything other than that, you guys. No, you got a big book, let me search it. Now, in that song, she says you got to flip down, flip it, and reverse it, or something like that. And then the lyrics are taken and played backwards, or flip, right? And so let's do that. Let's Missy Elliott this. So let's take what was written and flip it. So if I do not share fearlessly and honestly in that fit. Yeah, it's work it. Yes. And you better work it because you're worth it. Yeah, Missy Elliott. And then in the early 2000s, there's that song, I think her name was Khalees, and it was like, my milkshake brings all the boys to yard. I need to do a version of that for step 12. My spiritual awakening brings all the sponsees to the yards. I can teach you, but my spiritual way of life is an avocation, so I will not charge, music. Paul's like, actually, you know what? Paul knows what he got when he asked me to share. He knows. This is on him. We'll take it up in 4-column inventory, or we'll take it up with Bill Swan. All right, so if we flip down, flip it, and reverse it, what do we see? Well, what we see is that if I do share honestly, I will lose my egoism and fear. And that ego is that self that binds me. If I share honestly in my fifth step, I will humble myself. I will learn humility. In fact, it goes on to say, we will learn humility and fearlessness and honesty. And that is what is promised us. And now I'm just, let me have a look. I know he said I could go over, but it's like 5 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll skip over the fifth. Okay, I'll do the fifth step promises. I'll do them. I know. I'm pushing it. All right. So it says on page 75. Let's pop over, and it's the second full paragraph. It says we pocket our pride and go to it. Hey, pocket our pride. That'd be a good name for a different Cocaine Anonymous meeting that happens at the same Zoom code, but on a different date and time. See what I did? I tied it in. I'm the worst. All right. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twisted character, every dark cranny of the past. And I love that idea of God as light. You know, I'm stuck in that darkness, and that light comes to meet me where I'm at. And it says, once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, once we have done this, letting go of nothing, we are delighted. And this is how we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the 12 steps is taken out of the book Alcoholics Anonymous are experiential in nature, which is to say, I have to do them to receive the promises. Because anyone here think after you, like before you did a 5th step, your first ever one, did you think that the result of that would be delighted? Did you think that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I didn't think I would be delighted. I thought I would be surely rejected, and I wanted to vomit. That's what I thought, and I thought it was going to be awful. But what was my experience? Was that there was freedom. It goes on to say, we can look the world in the eye. And so to get to that place, I've got to share honestly in that 5th step. I've got to be thorough in my 4th step. But from that is I can look the world in the eye. And I don't know about you, but when I first got here, I was not looking anyone in the eye. I was intimately acquainted with the square of floor that was in front of me. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease, which tells me, you know what I mean? That I am free from the screaming, the pain, the suffering that was happening deep within myself. It says our fears fall from us. And when my fears fall from me, what that means is I know that I did not do it. I didn't overcome the fear. I took a course of action and it fell away. I received the gift. It says we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. So it goes on to say, actually, we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but we now begin to have a spiritual experience. I needed one of those. So it is not an over there conception of a power. It is a power that is in the here and now and flowing through me. And I can't get there through intellect. I have to get there through action. And let's be honest, it's action I don't want to take. It's action that I'm afraid of. It's action that I do not think will help. But if I do it anyways, I'll get the result. So it says, we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but we now begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly, because when I begin to awaken spiritually, I'm treating what is at the root of my problem, which is the spiritual malady, which is the pain of living with a sense of separateness from God. And when I'm in pain, all I can do is think about me, and I act from that place of me. And that's why selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of my troubles. I'm operating from pain. And when I treat that pain with the spiritual awakening, I no longer need to reach for a drink or a drug, because the pain is healed. And that's what we do here. So we are, and so that, you know what that tells us? Emotional sobriety is the point. It's not an add-on. It's not an extra. Emotional sobriety is the point. It goes on to say, that feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly, but it will leave if I stop here. I cannot stop here. We feel we are on the capital B, capital H, broad highway, walking hand in hand with the capital S, capital U, spirit of the universe. When we're talking about the 2nd step promises, it was like, hey, you can join us on the broad highway, which is rude because it's not the broad vacation destination. Y'all know what I'm saying? Like, it's not spiritual Cabo. It is a journey. It is a way of life. I'm not done, but we are on at this point as the result of taking action. It is not a theory. It is an experience that is beginning. We are on that broad highway, and we are walking, which is to say moving, taking action, but we are hand in hand with the power of the universe, hand in hand with God. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pop over to page, what are we going to do? I'm having a look at what, I'm not going to, you know what? Well, let's pop over to page 83. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a 9th step promise, but we're not going to do the 9th step promises. How does that sound? So you might think I'm expecting us to go to the bottom paragraph of page 83. Nope. What we're going to do is, so what we are going to do is we're going to pop to the second paragraph on page 83. The spiritual life is not a theory. Now this is a promise. And I'll show you where. The spiritual life is not a theory, which again is rude. You're going to ask me to do things? It says we have to live it. It requires action. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not urge them. The principles are the actions of the 12 steps. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. And this is the promise. They will change in time. But here, all the promises, they've got little requirements, like the 9th step promises that I'm going to skip over. The 9th step promises require that I be about halfway done my amends. That's the caveat for that. The 5th step promises that we spoke about, where the requirement is that I've done that 5th step fearlessly and thoroughly. And this is the requirement for this promise right here. It says our behavior will convince them more than our words. Not just abstinence, but does my behavior convey that change in who I am? That change. Not just not drinking, not just not stealing, not just not smoking crack, but am I showing up kind, patient, considerate, thoughtful, regardless of what anyone says or does? Am I demonstrating that? That is what will convince them. Also, another little sneaky promise. It's on page 78. It's the very first line of the first paragraph. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. You know what's unexpected? That the amends goes well. So you know what the promise is? Most of your amends are going to go infinitely better than you think they are. You know, because I think every amends is going to go awful. And they're going to kick me out and tell me that I suck. No. And so what we're going to do, because I'm a little over time, what we're going to do is we're going to skip over the 9th step promises, and we're going to skip over the 10th step promises. And the reason I'm skipping over those is because I have a feeling they have been talked about a lot at this meeting. Am I wrong? Huh? Am I wrong? Yeah, so let's pop over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 2 of the 12-step promises. And then I'll wrap it up. So you guys get a sense that I'm landing this plane. So let's go to page 89. First 2 paragraphs. These are the beginning 12th step promises. It says practical experience, which is to say our lived experience, not a theory, not an idea, on page 89, shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking, immunity from relapse. That's promised, immunity from picking up that first drink, drug, hit, hoop, pill, whatever, immunity. So if I want immunity, this is what I got to do as intensive work with other alcoholics, with other addicts. It has to be intensive. It's got to be a little inconvenient. You know what I mean? It's got to be. So am I working intensively? And here's what it says. Again, another promise. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message, not my message, the message that is outlined in this book. Carry this message. And to other alcoholics, to other addicts, you can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. We have been made to help people like us, created to help people like us that nobody else can help. What a responsibility we have been given. What a precious gift we have been given. It says life will take on new meaning. And I don't know about you, but my life was pretty meaningless when I got here. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. That carrying this message to others is the bright spot of our lives, that this gives our life joy and meaning and purpose. And that is, again, available to each and every one of us. Last promise that I'm going to reference. Let's pop over to page 100. And this is another 12-step promise. Page 100, first full paragraph. Both you and the new man must walk day by day, so this is a daily program of action. And also, hey, it tells me I can work with sponsees daily. And I'm supposed to be intensive. By the way, if what you're doing is working, you don't listen to me, you go do you. But I'm just saying, I work hard with them. Must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. It's not progress, not perfection. It is spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. How am I progressing spiritually? Because how I'm progressing with the job, the career, the relationship, the family, the finances, the health, none of that is sufficient to keep me sober. How am I progressing spiritually? It says remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. That's why who cares about my little plans and designs? What happens when I put myself in God's hands is better than anything that I could have imagined. And how do I put myself in God's hands? That is the purpose of the 12 steps as outlined in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how I get there. And it says, follow the dictates. That just means directions of a higher power, capital H, capital E. Follow the directions of a higher power. And at base, what are the bare minimum directions? All 12 steps out of this book as a way of life. Like my life depends on it, because it does. Those are the directions, right? A higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. So that my sobriety, my peace, my happiness, my joy is not contingent on anything outside of myself, but contingent on building that relationship with this power. So that is an extra 6 minutes for me, and I'll wrap it up and toss it back to you. Thank you so much.